Welcome to our Career Talks 2021. Our first speaker is the chairman and CEO of Pahes Holdings Incorporated. In 2015, he was awarded by the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry as the Entrepreneur of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, to talk about entrepreneurship and leadership, let's welcome Mr. Bunny Pahes.
Thank you for having me again, Yana. This is the second time that I'm talking to your class. Well, I wasn't raised to be an entrepreneur. My parents, my mother was a teacher and my father was a lawyer, actually raised me to become an employee. So everything that we talked about in the dining table was always looking for a good job, find a good career, so that I can become a good employee in the future. So when I finished high school at the University of San Carlos, I was looking at a good course to take, and I took chemical engineering at the University of San Carlos there in Talamban. So when I finished chemical engineering, there was no thought of going into business. So I was asking myself, what was the best career moves? At that time, the oil companies like Shell, Petron, they were there at that particular point. So I applied with a company, which is an American company at the time, Mobil Oil. And I applied also with Esso, which is another oil company, but Mobil was first. So they got me and I joined at age 20. I was assigned to Iloilo City, where I became a sales representative. So my job was to deal with the dealers. And I was also visiting commercial accounts to sell fuel products and oil products to these corporations. But what happened was I became very dissatisfied after 5 years. So I said, what's a career move? And the career move was, believe it or not, I was a chemical engineer, but I went into the life insurance industry to sell life insurance for a Canadian company called Manulife of Canada. And I just realized, but I spent 23 years with Manulife until I became already just dissatisfied too, that it wasn't something that I could leave my family with. So eventually, at the late age of almost 50, I actually left Manulife. I was moved to Cebu at that time, and we were here, and including the dad of Yana, John, who's the eldest among my children. And I decided to really start a business. So we started with the restaurant business. We started a school, and then the rest is history. So that's how I became an entrepreneur, but was not trained. I had to learn along the way. So I guess becoming an entrepreneur is not necessarily something that you study. It's something that you set your mind into, and along the way you learn a lot. And that's what I'm going to be able to share with you today. What I have learned are things that you can always use in any career that you will be going into, whether you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, or a professor, a teacher, or any career that you would go into. The lessons that I will be able to share with you this afternoon will be all important. So I'm really excited to listen to your questions, and I'm very, very equally excited also to share.
How were you able to switch careers and become successful in the later years? Maybe share with us some tips on how you were able to adapt to a new environment.
One thing good when your background is sales, like my background when I started with Mobil Oil was actually sales. And then when I left Mobil Oil, I joined, as I said, life insurance, which was also sales. Now, when you're in sales and you really put it to heart as being a good salesperson and a sincere person who is after the welfare and the benefit of your customers and your clients, then your main purpose is really to create satisfied customers. So when I switched to becoming an entrepreneur, the mindset of creating satisfied customers was very, very strong in my consciousness already. So with that, everything that we have done all these years, and I've been at this now for over 20 years in the business world, had always been one focus, and that is to create satisfied customers. So when you have that mindset, that transition is not going to be very, very challenging.
Right, definitely. You mentioned the word mindset quite a couple of times. So I think there are definitely some skills that are attached to creating that mindset and then honing in on those skills will help prepare you for whatever challenges face ahead. Can you talk a little bit about what skills are needed to successfully become an entrepreneur, and how did you master those skills?
Well, first of all, I want to focus on one word, and that is preparation. Maybe Yana, if you could put that on the screen first, just the word. I just want everybody to just take a look at that word, preparation. What does this mean? Preparation is getting ready for something that will happen in the future, or something might happen in the future. And to me, this is a very important phase of your development now as students, because if you are prepared, then anything that comes out in the future, you can cope with. In fact, I have a very, very important quotation that has been really in my consciousness all these years, and I've shared it with a lot of people, and I think has also created impact on them. It runs like this: it is better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So let me repeat that. And this is regarding preparation. It is better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Okay, so that's, we can take that off from the screen. Preparation, think about it. So your main responsibility now as students and as young people is to prepare for the future. But let's talk about the future. What is the future? What is life going to hold for you? It depends. It really depends to a large extent what your attitude towards life is. To me, life is exciting, it's challenging, it's an opportunity to grow, it's an opportunity to serve people, and of course, it's an opportunity also to be happy. Now, but along the way, there are always givens that have to be there all the time. There will be problems, there will be challenges that you'll face. You will be meeting people that are going to be very difficult, will give you problems in your life. There are people who will also be helpful to you, but there are also people who will give you problems and will give you burdens and sorrows and difficulties. Now, how you deal with all of these things depends on how you are prepared with them. So the most important thing is preparation. How do you prepare? Number one, the way I look at it is you prepare by creating and developing good habits in yourself. Really, good habits are so important. I listed down a few good habits that are so important, and let me just run through them quickly. I think it's important that you develop, first of all, the habit of waking up early in the morning. It's so important. Wake up at 6 o'clock every morning, regardless of what happens. Make that a habit, and then you have a head start for life. The second habit that you should develop is that when you get out of bed in the morning, you should fix your bed. There was this good speaker, a military guy in the United States, which I listened to. I forgot his name, but he said, when you get up in the morning and you fix your bed, at least you have accomplished something positive for the day. So regardless of how your day will turn out, whether it will turn out be bad or not too good, you have accomplished something that is already meaningful. You fixed your bed. Number two is it is very important to develop the reading habit. To me, reading is so important. And if you don't read, you're like a person who doesn't know how to read. Third and fourth is the habit of exercise, the habit of making a reward your bond. There are so many other things, the habit of closing open loops. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that in a little while, Yana, because this is a very important habit that we all can develop. So I guess that is so important to do this, and that is part of preparation. Jan?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think you had so many good points. There's too many to extract from there. But talking about the future, because you mentioned it earlier, and I'm sure the students here are also wondering what the future has in store for them, especially now that everything is online and we have really no idea what's going to happen in the pandemic. There's a question here. Is there a suggested age in life to pursue business? Can they start as early as now, or do they wait later on in the future? What's your advice for that?
Well, I think it has to be very situational. You know, there are many children right now who are more ready than the others because their parents had raised them up to become business people, become entrepreneurs, and that is an advantage. But to go into business is really quite challenging because it is something that you don't really have a sort of a fallback position in case you lose, and you could lose. especially at this time of the pandemic, which we all know is not going to be very, very quick yet. Projections are saying that we will have to be in this kind of situation for what, maybe 3 or 4 years. Even the National Economic Development Administration, or NEDA, which is the planning organization and the planning department for the government, says that it would take 10 years. So I guess for you who are right now at 14 years old and even 16 or 17 years old, you have time to prepare. And I think things are very, very fluid, Yana. So yeah, I don't think there's any set time, but it took me a long, long time because I wasn't ready. But when I went into business, I knew I was ready, and I did not want to pursue any more situation where I was working for somebody else. So I think that has to be dealt with individually. But my point is that get ready for it. Expose yourself to as many business situations as you can. Read books, talk to people, ask questions, study. And right now, the world is so accessible right now in terms of learning. You've got YouTube, you've got podcasts, you've got a lot of materials right now that you can learn. During my time, it was very difficult. The only source of good learning material was really the library, and you have to go to the library. Imagine you have to borrow a book, which you can only borrow for a few days, and you return the book, otherwise you get charged. So the world has changed, and I would say that you have to take advantage of the benefits of the opportunities that are available to you right now.
Speaking of resources, because you mentioned a lot of podcasts and audiobooks and just reading in general, can you talk a little bit about maybe your favorite books, your favorite podcasts, or who do you listen to, who do you read, who do you follow?
Yeah, well, good question, Yana. I actually grew up like I was feeling inferior. I had a strong inferiority complex. So what helped me a lot was reading books. And the first book that I have really that sort of created an impact in my life, I don't know whether you've read this book, but it was like a book by Dale Carnegie entitled How to Win Friends and Influence People. This was one of the best sellers in the world. And again, let me repeat the title, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I've been really carrying the tenets there and the learnings from the book all my life. So, and one of the things that I really learned there is that you can make people like you by being interested in them than you trying to make them being interested in you. So all these years, I've been really used to asking questions and learning from people. And I'm not so used to being interviewed, although this is getting to be more often these days. I'm better at interviewing, I think, than being interviewed. So that's an important point that I want to bring up, Yana.
Yeah, the art of asking questions and just staying curious also about people and everybody that you meet. It's a good reminder also to be humble. There are several questions here that circle over the same topic, the same question, and it's is it better to pursue something with more pay or something that you deeply enjoy, or how do they achieve wealth but at the same time make it a passion?
Well, first of all, again, let me go back to one of the books that I really enjoyed reading. It was good. It was entitled Good to Great. And this guy, Jim Collins, is a very, very famous author, business author. So he wrote this book, Good to Great. And one of the things that he talked about there was when you want to pursue a business or you want to pursue a career, the first thing you should really ask yourself is, what am I passionate about? No, it is something that what do I really want to do in my life? I know maybe when you're young, and I passed through this, that might be a difficult question to answer, but you have to ask yourself, what do I really enjoy doing in my life? If you like dealing with people, do you enjoy standing just being alone and be a loner and working alone? So you've got to ask yourself, what am I passionate about? That should be the first question. The second question you should ask yourself is, what am I good at? What are my best qualities? What can I be the best in the world at, if that can be possible? So the first question is, what am I passionate about? The second question is, what can I really be good at? And third is, well, the money angle, because you can do all of those two things, but if there's no money coming in, you really cannot support yourself and sustain a living, which is so important also in building a family and moving into the future. But going back to the question, I think in the beginning, I think you should try to really find something that you like to do, that you're passionate about, even if the money is less. Go for it, because eventually the money will just come in if you provide a service and you are able to fill a need that other people would definitely be willing to pay for.
Yeah, that's a great
And
answer. Yeah, that's a great answer. Just building on that, there's another question here regarding capital and then starting a business. Is having a huge capital necessary to start a business?
well, you have to have enough capital, because if you don't, it's going to be a problem. I always said, business is only fun if you're making money. If you're losing money, like so many businesses are during the pandemic, it's not fun. It's really like scrambling, and it's going to be very, very difficult, because you cannot continually stay in business if you keep on losing money. So the capital is so important. And of course, there are several sources of capital. If you have rich parents, then you can ask for them to give you capital and maybe eventually pay them. Well, the bank can also provide you capital if you have collateral, you have property, if you have asset that you can mortgage to the bank. Although the banks, I have to tell you now, are very careful, especially supporting industries that are distressed. So if you are in a distressed industry right now, then it's very difficult to raise money from the bank. But if you have money, your family has money, make sure that you can use that money properly, and that's where you can actually build a business. But capital is necessary to start a business.
Speaking now on personality, because there's an interesting question here. Of course, you've dealt with so many people and have spoken to so many employees. But regarding running a business, the question here is, what do you look for in an employee?
Looking back, I had so many opportunities of interviewing people. And looking back, if I were to just do it all over again, first of all, I would be looking at people with the personality that is positive. You can see it with people, and then you can feel it with their drive, with the way they move, and the way they actually talk to you, and the way they answer your questions. So this is so important to look for. I would first of all look for a person who has energy, who is enthusiastic, who has passion, and you can sense from the person's personality, the way he answers your questions, the way he talks to you, or the way she talks to you. And of course, the intelligence is so important, because personality really can only carry you to a certain level. But intelligence is something that you can actually also develop over the years. And by reading, by studying, by talking to people, and learning from the resources that are available to us. So to answer that question, Yana, is that I would look for, first of all, the personality of the person. The person doesn't necessarily have to be handsome or beautiful, but again, there is such a thing as called it, that you can feel the drive, the passion, by the way this person would interact with you as a person interviewing. And you can see the interest, you can see the energy, and you can see maybe even the rapport that you have with this person. So another question that you should ask yourself is, would I want to hire 100 more of this kind of person? So that's a very important question to answer for you as the interviewer looking for someone to hire for a job. If you now say that it is so important to really plan your life year in and year out, I did not do that. And I've talked to also so many successful people in this world, and most of them, many of them also say that they did not really plan for it and really knew what was going to happen to their lives. What happened was they went with their desires, their passion, what they would like to do. And when they were in those situations, they did their best. And when the opportunities came to make a pivot or to go somewhere else, they took those routes and again did their best, prepared themselves to move to the next level. And I guess that's what happened to me. So I was prepared to be an employee, and I became one for a long, long time. Then the life insurance industry became an opportunity to earn more and to sell and to learn to become a better salesperson. I took it, but I stayed there for what, 24 years, not just selling, but training salespeople to become better salespeople. And then when I was 50 years old, I just realized that it wasn't something that I wanted to continue for the rest of my life. It wasn't something that I could leave my family with. So I actually dropped, and it was a maybe scary thing to do at age 50, when 50 is not that young, you're not also that old, but it was a good point to make a decision. And I made a decision, but it was something that I wanted to do because I wasn't happy anymore. And again, it's important to be happy with what you're doing, because life is too short to live and being unhappy. Of course, we're still learning. We had been challenged by the crisis almost 2 years now. And although we could always say, maybe when this day is over, when this year is over, said, this is the best thing that ever happened to us. Because we became better, we became stronger, and we became even more passionate. We wanted to do so. Planning your life to the specifics and to the year in and year out is not really a very realistic thing to do. What's important is you prepare yourself. You become a better person, the best that you can be, by just keep on improving your communication skills. Set your mindsets correctly by developing that growth mindset. Learn how to work hard. Develop the good habits that you need to develop in life. The habits of keeping your word, the habit of working hard, the habit of being truthful and honest, deliver on promises, get up early in the morning, have a head start. I mean, those are the things that when you do well and when you do consistently in your life, will give you a bigger chance of becoming a successful person and becoming a happy person, and a person that will also make other people happy.
This concludes the first session of our Career Talk Series 2021. Thank you for joining us.